This week on Engage the Sage.
Hi everyone, I'm Don Saucier. Welcome to this week's episode of Engage the Sage. This week, I'm going to talk to you about bringing peace and empathy to your meetings. And by meetings, I mean all your meetings. I mean meetings with students, meetings with colleagues, meeting with departments, meeting with committees. I want all the meetings to have peace and empathy infused into them. As you are probably aware, I advocate bringing peace and empathy to our teaching and to all the places. Peace stands for preparation, expertise, authenticity, caring, and engagement. And I think these provide the foundation for making our teaching, our research mentoring, our advising, and our interactions with students and colleagues better. So today, I'm going to talk about some very specific ways and some very simple ways to bring peace and empathy to how we set up and conduct our meetings. The advice I'm going to give you today, these very, very simple tips, are going to be founded on the principles that I talked about when I talked about empathetic course design and about bringing peace and empathy to our research labs. So definitely check those videos out. But all of these tips are going to be super simple, and it's something you can do in your next meeting. My first recommendation for making your meetings more empathetic is to respect your meeting partners and their time. When people come to a meeting with you, be it students, colleagues, whomever, you should be grateful that they are there. You should thank them and mean it for their participation and attendance at your meeting. I think starting your meetings by genuinely thanking the people who are there is a wonderful way to set a positive and empathetic tone for that meeting. My second recommendation is to schedule the meeting empathetically. As I talked about last week, in terms of bringing empathy to your research lab, it's important that we remember that meeting or the research that we're doing is not the only priority or responsibility for the people we are partnering with in that meeting or on that research. Our meeting partners have other things going on in their professional and their personal lives. And when we're scheduling that meeting, it's important that we are empathetic to those other responsibilities and priorities. Operationally, what I mean by scheduling meetings empathetically is schedule your meetings at times that are going to work for your research partners. Avoid meetings that are after hours. Avoid meetings on weekends. Avoid meetings right before or during vacations. And I say this from experience, also do not have meetings on holidays. My third recommendation for empathetic meetings is to have an agenda. When you have an agenda for your meeting, what it's going to do is it's going to provide some structure to that meeting. And it's going to make it more likely that you're actually going to achieve the things in a timely fashion that the meeting is set up to achieve. And leading into my next point, maybe you include some team building activities on that agenda. My fourth recommendation for making your meetings more empathetic is to build community and rapport with your meeting partners during that meeting. This could be as simple as doing weekly check-ins where you're asking your people how they're doing and you really care about the answers. One of the things that I like to do in my meetings is to share weekly wins. So everyone goes around the room and shares a personal or a professional win for them that week. So rather than starting by commiserating and complaining, we actually start by celebrating our collective successes. And a note on those wins, sometimes those wins are big, sometimes those wins are small and are just, I made it to this meeting today. That might be your win. One of the ways to help build community and rapport with your meeting partners is to provide them with genuine opportunities to contribute and to use their voices. The reason you should be having a meeting in the first place is that whatever goals you're trying to achieve are achieved better in a collective. So let your meeting partners contribute meaningfully to the satisfaction and achievement of those goals. My fifth recommendation for bringing empathy to your meetings is to keep your meetings short. In saying this, I literally have a 3.5-hour meeting that I'm supposed to attend this coming Friday. I recommend that you do not make your meetings that long because I think it is highly unlikely that you will be successful and productive for that much time toward any agenda. I recommend you keep those meetings short as they need to be, and you keep the pace brisk as you go through your agenda in achieving what that meeting is supposed to achieve. My sixth recommendation for bringing empathy to meetings, and this relates to some of the others, is to end your meetings on time. As I mentioned, our meeting partners, and we ourselves, have other priorities and responsibilities, both professionally and personally. And when I commit to a meeting, I'm committing to a time span at the end of which I expect to be able to then pursue some of those other commitments and responsibilities. So when you're running meetings, and when I try to run my meetings, I try to do my best to end the meeting on time. And if it's impossible for me to do that, I understand sometimes the discussion is extending. I understand sometimes it's very important that we conclude that agenda item. If that is to happen, let your people go at the predetermined time, even if the meeting will continue after they leave. Speaking from personal experience, I have had to leave a lot of meetings at the time they were supposed to get over to pick up kids. I am also aware that sometimes when I get up at 5 o'clock when that meeting's supposed to be over, I'm aware that people are watching me leave sometimes and wondering, why is he leaving? Shouldn't he stay and finish this agenda item? Sometimes I can't. So being empathetic to those situations for yourself and others, please, if you can, end the meeting on time, and if you can't, let the individuals go when time was supposed to be done. My 7th recommendation for empathetic meetings is only have the meeting if it's necessary. I think that some of us think that we are being productive when we have a lot of meetings, when in reality it's actually the time between meetings that we are productive. If you are having a hard time setting an agenda for your meeting, it's probably an indication that you do not need to have that meeting. You've probably heard the cliche that meeting could have been an email. Don't let that be your meeting. My 8th recommendation for bringing empathy to your meetings is to end your meetings with a summary of what you accomplished. When you end your meeting with a summary of what you accomplished, it's letting people know that what they contributed to that day was valuable. I often leave meetings with the feeling that that was a waste of time. If the last thing we do in the meeting is talk about why it was not a waste of time and why it was valuable, I'm going to be much less likely to have that feeling, and so are your meeting partners. You can also, at the end of the meeting, talk about what's coming up next, and you can use that as an inspiration for that productive time between those meetings. My final recommendation for empathetic meetings is to thank your meeting partners. Be grateful for their attendance and their time. One of the things I mentioned in our last video is I think we can do a lot better and do much more often in expressing genuine gratitude to each other. So if you follow these tips and you've had a great meeting, and even if you haven't, thank your meeting partners for coming that day, for attending, and for contributing. In conclusion, I think we should bring peace and empathy to our meetings. I think this is something we should put effort to do intentionally, and it's something we can be successful in doing with just a few tweaks. Now, I also understand and acknowledge that not every meeting that I've been in and not every meeting that I've led has necessarily incorporated all of these recommendations successfully. And that's fine, but I think we should work to infuse peace and empathy into our meetings. And I think that work is going to be worthwhile. I think our meetings are going to be more engaging and more productive when we bring peace and empathy to them. In the comments below, I would love to hear about your experiences in your meetings, and in particular, how you bring peace and empathy to them. Thank you for watching this episode of Engage the Sage. Please like, subscribe, sign up for notifications, share us on social media, and we will see you next time on Engage the Sage.